This episode of The Matt Feret Show is brought to you by the Brickhouse Agency. Brickhouse is a boutique independent health insurance agency that focuses on finding the right Medicare coverage for folks across the country. Matt's wife, Nikki, is the heart behind Brickhouse. She's great at making confusing things clear and is passionate about helping people find a Medicare insurance policy that suits their individual needs. To schedule a free one-on-one appointment with Nikki or a member of her team, head on over to brickhouseagency.com or simply call 844-844-6565 and someone will help you schedule a phone call or a Zoom meeting. The consultation is free because the insurance companies pay Brickhouse, not you. There's never any pressure or obligation to enroll. Your clearer, simpler Medicare journey is just a call or click away. BrickhouseAgency.com. Not affiliated with or endorsed by the government or federal Medicare program. Contacting Brickhouse Agency, LLC will direct you to a licensed insurance agent.
Hello everyone, this is Matt Feret, author of Prepare for Medicare and Prepare for Social Security Insiders Guidebooks and online course training series. Welcome to another episode of The Matt Feret Show, where I interview insiders and experts to help light a path to successful living in midlife, retirement, and beyond. Marita, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a treat to be with you.
Glad you're here. So I kind of start off every show like this. Tell everybody what you do, how long you've been doing it, and how you help people.
Well, I've been through a circuitous career path. So when you ask, what do you do? It's not really quite as easy as what do you do? I started out my early adult life as a motivational speaker and author, and I've written 20 books. And I did that for most of my adult life, 30 plus years. And unfortunately, at about 15 years ago now, well, no, it wasn't quite that long ago. But anyway, a while ago, my now ex-husband basically gave me an ultimatum. And he was tired of my traveling. And he felt that I was married to my business and to my work. And in a failed effort to save my marriage, I walked away from everything I had ever done because, you see, the topic that I spoke and wrote on primarily was relationships. So what good am I as a relationship expert if I can't give my primary relationship everything I can to make it work? So I walked away from that world and the staff that I had and everything that I had done. And it's a long story. You probably don't need to hear that part, but I accepted a position as executive director of a nonprofit organization that advocated on behalf of energy and the energy industry. And I know it's not a logical topic shift.
That's a very big change.
But I was able to take the position and kind of parlay it into what worked for me because I'm a speaker and an author. And so I quickly, I was philosophically aligned with the mission, so that part was easy. But I knew nothing about producing oil, about coal, about natural gas, about electricity generation, and I could now tell you more about any of that than you want to know, but that's not what we're here for today. And so I wrote columns that were published all over the country in websites, different papers in the oil patch, particularly. I was popular in the patch. I gave speeches to oil and gas associations around the country, and they were very news-based. So I had a weekly column. I was constantly watching the news to see how can I tie energy into the current news cycle. And I did that for a decade. And in 2016, I had an opportunity to go to Palm Springs, California, where my mother lived at the time and where she had a house. And I handled her extra house there as a vacation rental. And so every season I would go and freshen it up. And I went back there and we put in new flooring and I did quite a bit in 1 week. And I came home from that and I said to my husband, you know what I'd really like to do? I'd really like to flip houses.
Just like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little longer conversation. I'm giving you the way condensed version. By the way, I did get remarried in 2014. I met my new husband in 2013 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. at the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association's annual meeting. And he was in the oil and gas business at the time as well. And so we married in 2014, and I moved to Lubbock, Texas, from New Mexico to Lubbock, Texas. So that is where I am now. And so I said to him, I'd like to flip houses. Now, this is not quite as strange as it sounds because my college education was in interior design. I just never did anything with it. So I've kind of come full circle. And long story short is he said, okay, you can flip houses. Again, it wasn't quite that easy a conversation, but I started doing that in 2016. And then my mother, who was at the time 90, moved in with me in 2018 because she needed more care. And so I moved her from California to Lubbock, and I quit working because my mom needed me, and she needed me to be there for her during the day. And then she got better, and someone who I knew through the real estate business reached out to me, gave my name to a client of hers, and they called me. And again, I'm giving you the very, very short version. They called me and said, so-and-so gave me your name, and she thought you might be willing to remodel our bathroom. And I said, well, I've never done that for someone else. I do it for flip houses, but I'll come look at it. And that started what I'm doing now, which is I'm a remodeling contractor. And so that's what I actually do to earn a living.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a very circuitous route. My husband's a CPA, and his path is very straight. Mine, not so much.
Yeah, which brought you to today, and you and I talking. What's your newest and latest project? So you've got a lot of different varied experience. Not only did life take some interesting turns, but you also found time to write 20 books.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've got 2, and I can't imagine writing 20.
Well, at the moment, I can tell you, I can't even imagine writing another one. I haven't written a new book since 2014, probably.
Oh, well, I mean, still, that's still relatively recent.
Yeah, but I do have a new project.
Yeah, tell me about the new project, because I think this new project really kind of wraps in a lot of what you've been talking about, which is, well, a career, a different career, marriage, divorce, remarriage, and here you are today with a life's worth of experience and wanting to share it.
Yeah, there's a lot of us who get to this point in life, and I'm 65, and so there's a lot of us who make it to this point in life, and we have that varied kind of background. We've got the divorce, we've got the remarriage, we've got a lot of things going on in there. And what my new project is I call it the Best Life Project, and it's a website blog. It's really basically a blog. We might end up doing some podcasts, but that's not there yet. We need to have a little bigger audience before we put forth this kind of effort. But it's currently a blog, and I got the vision for it really literally just about a year ago, possibly even a year ago today, because I didn't write it down. I didn't know it was going to be the epiphany that it turned into being. But I had a dream one night, in the middle of the night, that kind of dream, not a I have a dream kind of dream. And in my dream was my mother. And my mother and I had worked together in Christian speaking and writing for many, many, many years. And as I said, she lived with me for the last 2 years of her life. And I had this dream. And in the dream, my mother was not the old lady I took care of. My mother was not the famous speaker or author on the stage in front of 30,000 people that she was at her peak. But she was somewhere, I don't know, maybe in her 40s. And none of that really matters, because what matters is that when I woke up, I had this really strong impression that what I had in this dream was my mother when she was living her best life. And the next thought that came into my brain while I was still in bed is that right now, this Marita, this 65-year-old Marita, this remodeling contractor Marita, not the famous speaker author standing on the stage getting the accolades, but this Marita was my best life. And so with that came a whole new direction for me. And I didn't do anything with it at first. It was just an idea, and I did nothing with it. Then my sister and I went to Hawaii in November, and we talked, and I told her about this dream. I hadn't told anyone, not even my husband, about it yet. And so my sister and I went to Hawaii, and I told her about this dream that I had, and she got really excited about it. Oh, I missed a part. I'm sorry. I got to tell you this one other part. So prior to going to Hawaii with my sister, just a week or so before, I got a call from someone who had been part of my former Christian speaker, writer, author life. And this person called me and she said, in fact, she might be good for your show, but she called me and she said, I have just won the Ms. Senior America contest, and I am now Ms. Senior America. And she said, I feel like I have been given this platform and I need to do something with it. She said, I think I need to write a book. And I told her, by the time you get the book written, by the time you get it published and out, you're no longer going to be Ms. Senior America. So you need to do...
How long do you hold that title for, by the way?
1 year.
Okay.
1 year. It's the new one is coming right up.
Yeah, but a year is not what took me a lot longer than a year for you.
And even if you had it all written, even if you could somehow miraculously write it overnight, the whole publishing process is very long. So I said to her, you need to do something else. And so I shared with her what I call my best life dream. And I said to her, you need to do something like this. Do a blog, because you can make that's quick. You can make it happen now. So then I go to Hawaii with my sister. I tell her this. My sister gets excited about it. She immediately calls her son, who's a tech guy, and says, would you buy me this domain name? Would you buy me this domain name? So we bought all these domain names, not knowing what we were going to do and what was going to happen. And then in February, we actually launched the Best Life Project. And so it's out there, and we post a couple different posts a week. And the target audience is women over 65 who live at the intersection of a Venn diagram, which includes health, time, and resources. And kind of our definition of living your best life is that. And we want to encourage women to take advantage of that unique place where they are while they have that opportunity, because we don't know how long we're going to have health. And of course, that's a key part of that. And what our best life is different for different people. For some people, it may mean traveling. For some people, it may mean going to every grandchild's football game or whatever. So we have different contributors that write for the Best Life Project. And we feature different inspirational, educational, and equipping pieces to help women over 65 live their best life.
That sounds pretty awesome.
So that's my new project. I'm still working on houses to earn a living, but.
Well, so what kind of response have you found? Have you found men saying, well, what about me? Or have you really gone like, my gosh, thanks. There isn't a resource out there, or there are very few for women of that age.
There are very few. I, of course, did my research before I launched this. And there are a couple things that are a little bit similar, but there's nothing I don't feel that's exactly what we're doing.
So what are you finding in terms of what people are approaching you for at this point, or they're interested in reading? I've had other guests on the show before, and you've got kind of the basics of your finances, right? Your Medicare, your Social Security.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to write pieces for me on that. Because seriously, I have very little on there on those specific topics. So,
but they're out there, right? And those are kind of the foundations for all the 67 million plus people over age 65 right now. But there is a real lack of stuff beyond that. And that's what a lot of this podcast is about but what else? You're living your best life. What does that mean to you? How do you go about finding it? What are the common themes, or what are some common themes or questions that you either write about, or that you're approached by other people going like, hey, I need to know more about traveling to my kids, like you said, high school football games, logistically, how that fits into my life. What kind of things are you running into that aren't being covered that you are?
Well, one of the things that we have gotten the most response on, and realize this is still really in its infancy, and so one of our biggest issues is eyeballs, getting more people to be involved. That's one of our biggest concerns, of course, because that's what happens with that. But one of the things that we've gotten a lot of response on, general topic, is grief, of course, because for most of us at this point, like myself, I cared for my aging mother. She died in my house during COVID. She did not die of COVID. And so then we had to plan a funeral when you weren't allowed to plan funerals. And so we've got several people that have written on that particular topic. I have a friend of mine who is a psychotherapist, and when she wrote a piece on when grief is relief. And her mother had been sick for many, many, many years, had no idea who she was by the time she died. And, that really complicates the whole grief process, is when you're like really pleased that the person has died because it was time and they needed to
pleased,
die.
But guilty for feeling relief, yet
Exactly.
not feeling relief because your loved one's gone, but they were gone, but they weren't the same person they were, and they wouldn't have wanted to be the same person they were, but you still miss them because they were there. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah. So we have several pieces on that. Another friend of mine from my Christian speaker writer world, wrote a piece on taking care of yourself as a caregiver, as she had cared for her spinster aunt. And so the aunt had no family. And so Candy took care of her. And then Candy had to clean out her house, and going through all the emotions of all of that. So we have quite a few pieces that generally address the grief topic, but more from, a senior woman perspective, as it is really different, because as I said, we've been caregivers. We've taken care of people, our parents, by the time we get to this point. I mean, now personally for me, most of my girlfriends do not have either parent still alive. I have a couple that still have a mom or a dad, but most of us by this point no longer have a parent alive. And so that's an issue that we deal with. But we also address silly little things. I mentioned to you before we officially began the interview that I'm having a dinner party Friday night. And I love to cook. I love to entertain. And people are kind of baffled by that. And I have in the blog, I write some pieces on how to do a meal plan, and exactly here's the St. Patrick's Day dinner plan. And, in the morning do this, and midday do this. And it's all outlined there, because relationships are something that becomes very important to us at this time in life. And again, we don't usually have our parents with us. In many cases, our kids live elsewhere. And so those relationships become very important.
I was hoping you were going to go there, because that's where I wanted to go, which is
relationships. Good. How nice.
Well, relationships. And I noticed in your bio, you have a lot of experience and probably your public speaking and your motivational speaking and your presenting, and much of your career around those relationships. How has the dynamic changed over the last number of years since you started doing this, and where you find yourself today in terms of relationships? And I ask that with this context. I'll pick up a newspaper, if you still read a newspaper, or pick up your iPad where the newspaper is now. And you're going to see once a week a story about loneliness. You're going to see a story about disconnection. I was having a conversation with a friend just recently who lived in Pittsburgh. And I don't know why we started talking about our neighbors. The neighborhoods aren't the same anymore.
No.
I know my next door neighbor. I know the person across the street, and that's it. And I've lived here for 8 years. It's not for want or lack of trying. It's not the same as it was even when I was growing up, and I'm sure not the same when you were growing up. So the relationship piece is missing from a community standpoint. And I think there's a lot of stuff out there that talks about that, specific to your audience and the people in your age group and women. Do you find that to be true? And do you find that really we're talking small groups or groups, people searching this out? How are relationships impacted today?
Well, one of the biggest things I think is, for women especially, is in younger years, the friendships came from children. You took your kid to softball or, ballet or whatever it is you did. And the other mothers who were there were an obvious connection point for you. In the office, you had the people you worked with, and maybe you went out to happy hour with them. or you, whatever you did, but you connected, you had a logical connection. But then when that job is gone, the kids are gone, it's like, okay, what do I do now? How do I make friends? And for me, that was a big issue because I moved from where I had been for the past 20 years. I moved from there to a brand new place when I got remarried. And I can tell you, I've been married, in the beginning, when I first moved here, I was in love. I was starry-eyed. I didn't think about what it was going to be like. And then after I'd been here 6 months, I literally cried to my husband. I mean, like real tears, cried to my husband and said, I don't even know enough people to have a dinner party. And then we got married in December. So next December's coming around, and I still really knew very few people. I had met a couple people, and it was December. And I realized if I was back home in New Mexico, where I had lived for 20 years, I would be preparing to host my church women's Christmas party at like this very week that I was having this thought. And I thought, I know enough about churches to know that I could call my church that I attend now and say, hey, I'd like to host a women's Christmas party. Well, they don't really know me. They're going to go through all kinds of stuff. I knew they were never going to okay that, and they still don't have a women's Christmas party, by the way. But I knew that they were not going to okay that. And so here's what I literally did. And I have a blog post on this, and it's called Building a Merry Little Band. And I started by going to the Nextdoor app and putting a post in the Nextdoor app asking, would anybody like to come to my house for a women's Christmas party? And that's what I did. Now, it was the Nextdoor app. So, it's a little bit controlled, the neighborhood. And 40 women came to my house for a Christmas party in a matter of a couple weeks from when I posted that post. Women said, I'll come help you organize it. And we had a little committee meeting, and we planned what we were going to do. And everybody came, and they brought a gift to exchange, and they brought a casserole, it was a brunch. It was a champagne brunch. So they brought champagne, they brought juice, they brought breakfast casseroles, they brought muffins, whatever. And that is literally how I began developing relationships in this new life.
But on the opposite end of that, 40 people RSVP'd, 40 complete strangers. What message did you take from that?
There's a need. That 40 total strangers were willing to come to a total stranger's house for a party. So obviously there is a need for that. So that's why I wrote a blog post on it, to really encourage people to step out of their comfort zone. And honestly, I have not heard from anyone that has done it as a result of that blog post, but the comments on it were, thank you, this has given me ideas, and I'm going to try something like this. And so now I have a spreadsheet of, this is my girlfriends. This is my close girlfriends. I can hear the
spreadsheet, and I can see the spreadsheet. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my spreadsheet of girlfriends. But, in 2014, I cried because I didn't know enough people to have a dinner party. Now, because this is kind of funny too, but I now have a dinner party lottery.
That much demand, huh?
I have so many. I realized after I got a bunch of new friends that I wasn't having a dinner party because, even though that was kind of my thing, because I couldn't invite everybody. I couldn't fit everyone around the table, and I didn't want anyone to feel left out. And so when I thought that through, I realized, well, if I put everybody's name on a little strip of paper, first off, I asked them, do you want to be a part of this crazy idea that I have? And everybody said yes. And so then I put their names on a little strip of paper, literally put them in a little jar, and pulled out 6 couples. My husband and myself plus 6, or not 6 couples, 3 couples, 6 people, which is 8 around the table. And then once a month I had a dinner party. So that's what I'm doing Friday night. I call it Casita Marita, because when I was a child, my father had a restaurant that was named after me, and it was named Casita Marita. And I still have this little bit inside me that wishes I owned a restaurant. So this meets that need.
Well, I think that's a really great practical way for not only women but anybody to do that, whether or not they move someplace or they're just going, hey, I need a new friend group.
Yeah, because
I need new connections.
these ladies that came, most of them had lived here for a long time. In fact, one of my friends who's on the spreadsheet, she's lived here forever. She's taught at Texas Tech University, which is the main university here in Lubbock. She's taught there her whole life. She grew up here. But her husband died about 3 years ago, so she's a relatively new widow. And when she kind of hooked up with our group, I asked her, why do you need us? And she said, well, because my life has changed and I'm kind of in a new place in life, and all my old friends are part of that other life, and I needed something new. So there's a lot of need out there.
Yeah, do you get that need through your website, or not just in your hometown there, but do you get that need a lot through the website in terms of the split between married couples and then single women, age 60, let's say 60 plus? Is there a difference there?
Yes, there most definitely is a difference there, and you have to be willing to kind of be alone. In my personal experience, I probably a third of my friends are single, whether they're divorced or widowed. And so when I have my little dinner parties, I'll invite two singles. If that's how the lottery works out, I'll invite two single people to come. And, as a single person, you have to be willing. Last year, in my case, 3 couples of us went to Napa Valley, and one of my friends who's single went. So there were 7 of us. And, she had to be okay with being kind of that odd man out. And she was. So for a single person, advice wise is be willing. Don't feel like, oh, I can't participate because I don't have a spouse or a partner or whatever. But as long as we're willing to welcome her into, which, I believe all the good friends would do.
Do you have thoughts around personality types that are, I guess, more or less seek something like this out, a sense of community, a sense of connection, kind of a women's only group? I know you spend a lot of time around peoples and personalities and those relationships based upon personality. Anything you would say to people with different types of personalities, thinking about, gosh, I'd love to do this. Gosh, I'd love to be part of a group. Gosh, maybe this website and this effort can help me. But in my local community, what to do? Anything around the personality piece, if someone's introverted or extroverted?
Yeah, I don't know most definitely. So this is the title, Wired That Way, of my best-selling book, which is on that topic. And this is the personality profile that can help you determine your personality type. It's also available electronically online at thepersonalities.com. So we use in this the 4 basic personality types, and you can label them whatever you want because there's a lot of different systems out there. My mother and I, in developing this material, used the original Greek words that Hippocrates used. But so we have the sanguine, who we call yellow, and that's kind of me. You can probably tell that's kind of the perky, cheerful, talkative, outgoing person, never met a stranger. Then there's the powerful choleric, or red, which is the strong, driven, goal-oriented kind of person that you can count on to get things done. They can tend to be a little bit bossy and step on people and be a little offensive. Then there's the perfect melancholy, which is the blue, deep blue, thoughtful, introspective, and they tend to be perfectionistic. And they're more definitely introverted, where the other 2 are more extroverted. And so the melancholy is someone that you need to kind of drag out more. And then there's the peaceful, phlegmatic green, like the grass. And that's a person who's very comfortable in who they are, but they're not going to get out of the house on their own as much. I mean, my husband is that, and he said to me one day that it's a good thing that I married you, because I would probably just sit here and watch TV all day. And that is true. And I make him get out. Last night we had 2 different parties. We had one at 5 o'clock and one at 7 o'clock that we had to go to. And he probably would not have bothered to go to either one of those if it wasn't for me. So we have the peaceful phlegmatic is the they're They're comfortable to be around. They're easygoing. They don't generally share an opinion, and it's not that they're holding back. It's that they don't generally have an opinion. So those of us who are the first two that I mentioned, the popular sanguine and the powerful choleric, are more people. And so we are the ones that need that more. However, the others need it as well, but maybe in a different venue. I have one of my girlfriends, a good girlfriend of mine, very close, is that perfect melancholy. And we have a group of friends that we get together and play dominoes every other Sunday afternoon. And that's what happens when you get to be 65. You play dominoes.
I played dominoes last weekend.
Oh, good. Anyway, so she said, well, if there's more than 6 people, I'm going to bow out. So she doesn't want to play dominoes with us if the group gets too big. So because that's not her thing as a perfect melancholy. She prefers the more intimate connections and the smaller gatherings. And so it's helpful to understand who you are and what kind of works for you.
It is. I'm sitting here thinking, which color am I?
I don't know you well enough to tell you, but
I think I know which one it is. And I bet some people listening might too. Anyway.
If we spent a little more time together, I could probably figure it out. But
I don't know. Let's keep it a mystery.
Well, in all seriousness, by the time we get to be our age, hopefully we've learned a lot. In fact, I wrote a piece on this very recently on thebestlifeproject.com, best life with a hyphen between best and life, and on living in your strengths. And that's one of the things that I think is really important personality-wise, is that you don't use it, regardless of whether you've done my system or someone else's, don't use it as an excuse and say, oh, well, you know how I am, that's the way I am. But no, to use it as a tool for growth, that you can look at who are you naturally, and then you can look at the skills that the other personality types have. And as an intelligent human being, you can work to gather those skills that you don't have naturally and work to minimize your weaknesses. So in all seriousness, by the time you get to be our age, it shouldn't be all that easy to figure out what your personality type is, because you've grown and matured, hopefully. Now, those who know you really well, who know you when you're at your best and know you when you're at your worst, not just the kind of pretty picture you give the world, they will know. But ideally, we've grown and matured. And that's a really important element of our being at this point in life and living your best life, is really living in your strengths.
Go to the strengths and the best life, because you touched on this and then we got off it, but I want to hit it again. You're doing contracting work. I mean, that's
who would have guessed?
Well, I mean, I think it's awesome, and that's because I like the whole multifunctional approach. I, for one, don't believe there's a career, right, that starts and stops and then that's it. I really like doing a lot of different things. I think it's what makes,
and that's why
exciting.
You're doing this podcast.
You got it. It's also a real joy for me to do, and I hope that comes through. But this is a lot of fun for me, and it's rewarding in many, many, many ways. One of those things, though, is life isn't over at age 60 or 65.
Yes.
And it can be intimidating. Not only, I mean, again, look online, like Google the word side hustle. You're going to see everything from dog walking to Uber and everything else. And they always aim it towards the Gen X, late Gen Xers and early Gen Yers and even some Gen Zs, but that's not side hustle.
I think that in part is because most of our generation was raised more with, you're going to work here for 25 years and you're going to get a gold watch and you're going to retire. Yep. And that's not really how the world operates these days. And nope. when you reach this point and you have some time available, you may be looking for a side hustle, as it were. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
And so talk to me through how you came up with your best life, which is, right, a lot of change, a 20-year career in one way, a completely different one for 10, a move in, I'll just say, later life.
Yes, definitely.
A move. Yeah, I mean, a new move, new husband, and a new way to connect with people. But also, you're working, and it's something that you actually went back to your youth on. What was that thought process, and how do you help people think about that and live in their best life, and what to be afraid of and what not to be afraid of?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because I think it comes back to what have you not done that you wanted to do with your life? And for me, as I said, I majored in interior design in college, but I never did that professionally. And I don't think I consciously said, oh, I want to go back to that. But through the experience I had of kind of little bit at a time renovating my mother's vacation rental home, it's something in me clicked and went, I really love doing this. This is something I never planned to go back to, but I really enjoyed that. And because we have resources, my husband had recently received an inheritance from his parents, and so we had the resources available for me to be able to take this leap. And that's part of living your best life. And I mean, I really struggled with this when I kind of developed this idea of what does living your best life mean? Because honestly, not everyone can. I mean, if you don't have the time and you don't have the resources and you don't have the health, your life is very, very different from the picture that I'm painting and from what my girlfriends and I experience. And so I really want to encourage people to realize that fabulous blessing they have if they have health, resources, and time. And, if you're working full time, you don't have that time. I've got one of my friends, good friend of mine, I knew her in New Mexico and she ended up here in Lubbock, but she's still working full time. And she has 7 grandchildren who are in Lubbock, which is why she moved to Lubbock. So she moved here to be a grandma. She moved here to go to the kids' baseball games, to watch the girls in ballet or whatever. And so her view of best life is very different from mine. I have no children. My husband has 2 girls, but they're both in their mid to late 30s, but they have no children. So, we're in a really different place in life. So what my best life looks like is different from what her best life looks like, because for her, what she wants to do is be in Lubbock, where her grandchildren are, and go to their games and be there for them. And they spend the night with her. So while we're planning parties and things, she's like, oh, I can't go. I've got to go to football, or I've got to, whatever. But that's what she wants to do. So there's, it's different for different people, but someone who doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the time, and certainly doesn't have health is not going to be able to have that same level of best life.
But they've got your website, and they've got you, and they've got a couple of other people on there as a starting place to help define that, and not only define it, but then also how to go take action after defining it.
Yeah, our goal with the Best Life Project is to equip and encourage women over 60 to live their best life.
Well, it looks like you've got a great start.
Well, I hope so. I think I'm pleased with what we've done and the response that we're getting to it. Obviously, as I said earlier, it needs more eyeballs, and I appreciate you helping me achieve that.
Sure. Well, it's hard to get a message out there for sure, and it's hard to find. It seems like what's the stat? There's like 1 million new websites every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is about like the quality of what you're trying to do and your target audience, and there's an absolute need out there for what you're doing, and you're providing a great service for people. And your own story is very inspirational. I mean, I know I've said it already. I'll say it again. Author, motivational speaker, oil and gas worker.
Expert. I was an oil and gas expert.
And now house rehabber, flipper, interior designer, and still going. And by the way, doing a website trying to help other women over the age of 60. It's pretty awesome.
Well, that's, it's kind of that, like you talked about earlier, in one of my books, I call it a portfolio life. I've got these various things in my life, and they're what make it interesting and exciting for me. And I hope that others find that same joy through the resources that we're offering them.
I love it. Marita, what questions about your site and your effort and your movement did I not ask that I should have?
Well, movement is probably a little bit optimistic term.
Hey, we can be optimistic here. The movement.
Yeah, this movement, this strong women over 65, going out there and having a good time and living their best life. I encourage them to travel and, have friends over and just really enjoy life. So, of course, I want to mention the website is thebestlifeproject.com with a hyphen between best and life. Actually, it doesn't even have the word the. Sorry about that. It's best-lifeproject.com. And we have other domains, as I mentioned at the beginning, but that's the easiest one to talk about because we have like livingyourbestlife60plus.com. And in the beginning, we're still, it's not even a year old yet. So it's still a new project. And I of course check the stats to see how many views that we get. And when we post a new blog post, the views definitely go up, as I'm sure you understand how that goes. But We're excited about it, and I hope that a lot of women will continue to receive hope and encouragement for this new phase of life. Because when you're over 60, it really is different. As I said, your kids are gone, your job is maybe gone, your husband may be gone, your parents are gone. You're kind of forging a new path, and we want to help people with that.
Well said. Thanks so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
The Matt Feret Show, related content, publications, and MF Media LLC is in no way associated, endorsed, or authorized by any governmental agency, including the Social Security Administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The Matt Feret Show is in no way associated with, authorized, approved, endorsed, nor in any way affiliated with any company, trademark names, or other marks mentioned or referenced in or on The Matt Feret Show. Any such mention is for purpose of reference only. Any advice, generalized statistics, or opinions expressed are strictly those of the host and guests of The Matt Feret Show. Although every effort has been made to ensure the contents of The Matt Feret Show and related content are correct and complete, laws and regulations change quickly and often. The ideas and opinions expressed on The Matt Feret Show aren't meant to replace the sage advice of healthcare, insurance, financial planning, accounting, or legal professionals. You are responsible for your financial decisions. It is your sole responsibility to independently evaluate the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of the content, services, and products of, and associated with, The Matt Feret Show, MF Media LLC, and any related content or publications. The thoughts and opinions expressed on The Matt Feret Show are those of the host and The Matt Feret Show guests only, and are not the thoughts and opinions of any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Feret Show, nor is The Matt Feret Show made by, on behalf of, or endorsed or approved by any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Feret Show.